actually sell it, but I've sold a lot of pieces organically.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I've tried mediums like oil and acrylics and soft pastes as well. And I enjoy landscapes, but I do other aspects as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we see you, or is it
Yeah.
challenging?
No. Actually, I have a talk in the evening at 8 today, so I just had to send some invites out as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, the first step is artist has to be seen. So
If not the artist, the artwork can be seen I feel so.
yeah, I mean, you have to also see yourself in order for your artwork to be seen. So
Yeah. True.
that's it. Anyway, so I just have a small. So she's Gunjan.
Hi.
Just zoom around, pan around a bit to show your art.
Mine?
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I'm on phone, so how do I zoom in?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see one.
Yeah. So she started off and she's working on it and she's joined the call. So can you see?
Yeah, now we can.
Okay. Is it clear?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Or
can
am
see.
I hiding? Okay. So I just wanted to run through like so that you have an idea. So this is about me and the work that I've done. Like I've done some group shows and stuff like that, and I actually Gunjan and I were working together in up to 2009, and then I quit my job, went into art, traveled, and all that. So my work is available on these two websites over here.
Oh,
So,
that's awesome, huh?
huh?
I think that is really good.
Thank you. So then a lot of questions come about art, like when do you decide when you're an artist and when you decide you're doing it for income, when you're doing it for pleasure, when you're a hobby artist. You know, there is a career in it, and at the same time there's also this dabbling in art and doing a regular job and also doing art that happens. So I just thought I'll just segregate it for convenience and see where it goes. So you have an artist for pleasure, just because you're happy doing art. There's a person, I mean, you just start working with art, and some people do it for the income of it. Okay, I want to sell. It's just as matter of I'm making art and I'm selling art. And some want to make a career out of it, and then there is the artist. You must be wondering what is the difference between having an income career and an artist. So as a person who is doing it for pleasure, you'll just begin with any medium. You'll start off with oil or watercolors or crayons or pencil and stuff like that, whichever takes your fancy, maybe photography also. And you start spending some time with it. And then you read more about it, you practice. So this is how the self-taught journey starts off with. And then these are the different mediums available, like the oils, watercolors, graffiti. I mean, you can just, there's a vast play of stuff, installation and sculpture and all these things. So now you also get into elements and principles of art. And, you know, if you want, there is a notes over here which I can show you. Otherwise, there is a career in terms of art criticism, curation, even working with museums, to working with the artifacts and renewals of artifacts. I mean, art can be a career in any aspect, not just writing, creating art, even curating the art for people. So when you're looking at it for an income, as such, you're looking at selling your work. It's not like any plan. You just start selling and you have this friends and word of mouth, or you put it up on social media, or you get in touch with architects or builders and designers and stuff, and you can sell your art. I mean, or you can start off, these are commercial aspects. Now there is this difference between the commercial artists and the people who create art. Now there is a divide between the people in terms of thought process of that. There are artists who also do commercial, and there are artists purely who mainstream as artwork. They don't do anything else. So that is a divide that happens usually. And the difference between doing it like that and doing it as a career is you start building a portfolio. You're now known for certain number of artifacts or certain collections. So you make yourself established in that portfolio or the body of work. So when we're talking about getting professional into it, then now you're working and deciding whether you want to work with designers, you want to work with homes, you want to work with offices, you want to do wall art, you can work with theater groups and stuff like that. So that is another form of having an income. At the same time, it looks also like a career. It's a and then there is art curation. For that, you need to understand different body of work from the periods of time, the history of art, and things like that. So these are the various things. Now, when you become an artist, right? So this is where you look at, most of them are emerging artists. So when you say you're an emerging artist, when you're displaying your work in a gallery or when you're doing some work or somewhere, an art critic or a collector notices your body of work. And then they start putting you on the map of the art circuit, saying this person is there and this person's work is like this, and they write about you. And that's when you fall into the category of the emerging artist. More or less, it's not about the age that you are. It is about the kind of work that you've done and what is the different kind of mediums that you use, or what's your style, or how is it fresh from what you have seen, or how it has a different perspective. And if you want to look at how a CV looks like if you're an emerging artist, I have enclosed the CVs here below. And a mid-career artist is moving from emerging to mid-career is now you're known, your work is known. Like, and it is also priced well. The pricing is now increasing. And now people want your work, and there's a possibility that people will start looking at auctioning. That's the latest start of it. And then you have this entire thing about established artists like an M.F. Hussain or the progressive artists and things like that. So you have that category. Ideally, they achieve it in their lifetime, and they work on limited editions sometimes, and they're usually auctioned, or the big galleries try to own their work and monopolize the business. Otherwise, they're also into like people have died and they are no longer there. So they're now, the artwork is now valuable because now more art will not be produced by the artist. So that gets into the established artist category, to summarize the whole thing. Then there is people who will study and move into art. Like if you look at it, there are people who either go to Indian colleges, like you have a list over here on the left side and there's a right side, and there are people who graduate out of this and they already have a certain background and there's a curriculum and they are exposed to a lot of stuff. So it's either you do a master's or a BSA or something like that, or you go through a self-taught journey and also move through art residencies or art workshops or emerging artists collaborations that people announce. You just get into that.
So Nivedita, to actually go into these colleges, you need some sort of an education or an adapted.
I mean, normally graduation, you graduate out of a BFA, like how you do BCom or BSc, you graduate in arts. You can choose that, or I think there are some places where you can choose it at a later age also. I haven't done much research on that aspect. A lot of people wouldn't spend time on going through the BFA or an MFA because they started at midlife. It was not in part of the plan. So usually what happens is we try to get into doing it via art residencies and stuff. But if you want to get into the college, I can find out more details, or maybe we can check on that.
I've normally searched for some courses in Singapore or within Asia, but it's pretty difficult to find a course like that.
Okay. Do you want me to check on that for you?
Yeah, if you can, it'll be great.
Okay. Do you guys have any questions on this so far? I know I've run you through the whole thing. I can show it again, but I just thought I'll give a brief.
Actually, I knew this today only that there are courses for this art also, because I have heard about music schools and all music courses, but I was unaware about this course also.
Yeah.
So, are there any courses in that we can join in this middle? Because what I want to do, I'm interested in doing, but what comes to my mind is that he may or may not be I would be making some good art or not, but sometimes I'm willing to do that. So
When
are
you
there any courses
when you
I can
write
start?
when you write on a notebook, can people read your handwriting? Can you just write your name and show it to me? Or write a word and show it to me?
Let me turn the camera.
Yeah, so that is Sanjay, right? I can see it. So that is also art. If your handwriting is legible, you are an artist. Most people don't know this about art is we know how to draw. Everybody does. It's just that as you're growing older, let's say you're very young, 1 or 2 years old, and you're growing, maths, logic, language get more importance because they're very practical. Life, what do you call as life skills? People don't consider art as a life skill, but it is the first language that you speak.
Yes.
As a kid, you will be scribbling on walls. So the scribbles, apparently, as you grow older, it will show how you develop as a person. Like people draw a circle first, then as they grow older, they'll draw to eyes and nose. After that, they'll put horns. Not just ears, they'll put horns.
Yes.
So I didn't know this until my kid's school teacher mentioned that there is an age when you decide if your kids have started drawing only ears, they have grown to a certain age and they're developing in that correct age group. The horns, when they come, right, if it is a little late or early, it will determine whether your child is growing in the correct age group or not. So lines, markings are the first language that we speak. If I ask you to close your eyes and imagine you sitting with your friends, you will not get words. You will get a picture.
Yes. Yes.
So we store everything in pictures. So for us to actually replicate a picture is the most easiest. The reason why we don't do it is, suppose you have to do your self-portrait. Portraits are considered the most difficult because now you have to figure out the balance of the whole facial structure. You think you need anatomy and all that. It is not about not knowing anatomy, it is about observation. When you observe a face, you observe the face, but you also just have information coming from the left side of your brain saying that, oh, I know eyes. If you started to draw eyes, you're looking at somebody's eyes and you're trying to copy them on a paper. Now your brain is now throwing up because your left brain is fully functional, it's fully active, it's into logic, math, and gathering information, right? So what it will do is it will gather all the eyes that you have seen up till that day, and it will keep throwing that images in front of you.
Yes, yes.
So somewhere we are so distracted that instead of observing and copying it, we are also drawing what we are seeing here. So what happens is what you're visible you're doing, and what is invisible also you're doing, and then you judge yourself as, oh, I haven't done a good art. That's it. So there is a lady called Betty Edwards. I mean, if people haven't started art, I think this has been one of the most brilliant books. It was also inspired by a Zen of seeing. So Betty Edwards wrote 2 or 3 books and I think much more, but these are the most popular ones. Drawing with the right side of the brain.
Drawing with the right side of the brain.
Drawing with the right side of the brain. So what she was inspired by was, she was inspired by the Zen of seeing. So she says that when you're able to see well, you can draw it. But the problem is you don't see. So she tells, let's take a photograph of you, turn it upside down. So when you turn it upside down and you draw it, you're not now looking at eyes or ears or face or anything, you're just following the lines. So if you're just following the lines and say this curve, this straight line, or this is in relation to this, then the drawing becomes more easier because you're now focused only on the lines, the curves, the dots, and the space. So she talks about 5 aspects called the Gestalt theory of drawing. So she talks about the negative spaces, which is if you were to take this object. Now, if you were to draw this object, you'll have a problem. But if you were to have a viewfinder around it, which is like a rectangular sheet with an invisible, I mean, it's like a window in between, and you look at this object and color the space, you will get these lines right. When you try to draw these lines, you are trying to draw them according to your mind and observation, and you take these lines for granted. But when you're actually drawing with the space, now you're looking at this object from outside in. Every object that you see like this out. Now when they're asking you to see the space, you'll see the space inside out. Hence you will get this correct. So there are these so many exercises that are there, like if you actually sit with her book for 40 hours, 40 to 50 hours diligently, you can make a portrait.
Wow.
And she's also
that was a really
book
good
on
information.
color. Pardon me?
That was a really amazing information.
Yeah, so this lady, Betty Edwards, I don't think she's there anymore. There's a website called Drawing Right.
Drawing right, okay.
And her son is now taking care of that whole classes and all. But there is a book available. There are books on Betty Edwards, and there's also a book called Zen of Seeing. And they give you exercises, so you can actually work with art.
Oh, pardon me, that book, can
Zen
you
of
please write that down?
Zen of Seeing.
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 Yeah, Zen of Seeing. It is, I will check the author and I will post it.
Sure.
You need to, I'll give you my, you can note down my, sorry. I don't know why it's not going up. You can note down my phone number and you can message me so that I can give you the title.
Okay. I've taken the screenshot.
Yeah. Noted?
Yes, I have taken the screenshot.
Okay. So these are some things, and there are now. Do you have any questions about displaying your work and stuff, Hema?
Nivedita.
Yeah.
Hi, Punita.
Hello.
Yeah, hi.
No, I guess Hema was saying something. Let her ask her question.
No, you finish. I'll ask after that.
Okay.
problem.
So my query was related to, you know, I mean, like initially when we are doing, obviously we are kind of, you know, pretty judgmental about our work. We ourselves don't like our work because we while kind of drawing and or directly painting something, we are doing with a particular thought process, but then when I'm seeing it, there probably is a error I'm making in the color combination or something. So is there any basic funda which we need to follow when we are using any of the mediums, per se? Let's say oil to start with.
See, when you're working with oils or anything, you need to look at the elements and principles of art.
Mm-hmm.
Any art, when you're making it,
Okay.
you need to look at the elements and principles of art.
Okay.
Technically, this should open. Okay, anyway, so there is something called Elements and Principles of Art.
Okay.
There is a book called Art in Focus by someone. I forgot her name too. So there's a book called Art in Focus, and she talks about the elements and principles of art. Basically, the color, the hue, the texture, and the balance, the harmony. There are different aspects to it. So you just understand each topic and you work with it. Now colors, you can just start with one color, like the one that you see behind me. It's made out of coffee, drinking coffee, and it's only one color.
Okay, so I mean, I can see it's a very beige in the base, and then you have kind of
Lighter
layered it
versions.
with brown, and then further darker brown, I guess.
Correct. So you work with one color first.
Okay.
You take one color and you pick up 10, 20 items of the, let's say you take green or brown. You pick up any items that you see which are green or brown.
Okay.
Whichever is, pick one color and collect all these items. Now you'll notice that the leather brown is different. The wallet brown is different. Your cloth brown is different. Your plastic brown is different. Everything is different. Now, if you can achieve this using any medium, for a wood to look like wood, for a cloth to look like cloth, you're not trying to make an artwork and make you wrong there. You're trying to solve a problem there. When you're trying to solve a problem, you'll never judge yourself. You will start trying to solve the problem. So if you actually play, let's take a leaf. You have a plant at home. You want to draw that plant. Observe the plant. If you're observing it for 10 seconds and drawing only 3 seconds, what you're observing, you're drawing. But if you observe it, mostly you'll see people, they look like this and they'll draw for 10 minutes. And they look like this and they'll draw for 10 minutes. If you're looking for 2 seconds and drawing for 10 minutes, what are you doing? 2 seconds, whatever you saw, you'll draw. Remaining time, your brain is throwing all the information and you're drawing it. So the whole thing that is happening over there is not your capacity to draw. It is your capacity to see. It is your capacity to observe and be present with it. So if you actually sit with that plant and look at that same leaf and keep drawing it over and over again and observing, you will You will observe the veins, you will observe the smaller particulates of it. You will observe that it suddenly turned like this today, or turned like that today, or it's falling on some other leaf. You will now engage with that leaf, just one leaf in the whole plant. Now you'll have an established relationship with that leaf. You will know its growth. You will know when it's turning, at what light, like morning how it is, afternoon how it is. You will now start interacting and understanding and looking at that, just that. So as your eyes start seeing more, you can observe and you can get pose a picture to your imagination.
Okay.
Let's say you're looking at something and you feel you're not achieving that. That's because you're also allowing your brain to throw images. And you're capturing those. It's just that you're not realizing it. Like if you look at your hand, right? You see the line? If I ask you, just draw from here to here, this portion for 5 minutes. You will see why will it take for 5 minutes? This will take 5 minutes. If you actually observe and draw exactly how it is, it will take 5 minutes. You won't be able to focus on it for more than 5 minutes because it's boring. Initially, there will be the struggle with your left that is boring. I don't want these details. I want to get the work and get it done. But that, you don't see, if you're walking for the first time also, you're walking and you're stumbling and you're walking and you're stumbling, and finally you'll figure out how to walk. You give yourself time. But for drawing, nobody gives each other time. No, you're supposed to know it. It is so simple. And then when it doesn't come, you leave it. At a certain age, because somebody judged you or you judge yourself, you leave it. And today, if you're drawing, ask yourself, at what age did I stop drawing? You will know the number. And if your drawings are like an 8-year-old or a 5-year-old, it's because you stopped drawing at that age and you didn't practice. So your left brain grow into an adult and you are doing all the logic, math and everything that is there in daily life, but you didn't allow that artist to bud and grow. So just imagine you are there and there is this 5-year-old next to you. You want to run across the road, and if the child is not running, what do? You pick up the child in your arms and you run. You don't leave the child, or you don't curse the child that you didn't run, right? Then why would you do that to the artist in you? That's my question. See, people have a lot of jokes. Oh, I can also draw mountains. Draw one and one sun. Yeah, it is. And if M.F. Hussain did it when he was a child and somebody found his paper, today that artwork is going to cost you 15 lakhs or 20 lakhs because people are willing to buy that art made by M.F. Hussain when he was 5 years old. Why? Because he's no longer there. I'm just giving an example. I don't mean that somebody is selling that, but so now I'm going to actually take out the virtual background. There's a reason why I did the virtual background. Now I'm going to show you art. Can you see this?
Yeah, Vidur did it.
Yeah. So that's my son doing this. And by the way, the whole house is like that. Including the doors, cupboards, dining table, bed sheets, curtains. And when we were children, we are not allowed to draw on walls. Neither are we given enough paper. So I'm asking a question today, even if we are just 5 of us, what would it take to have children go and draw anywhere they want? People will say, no, you have to color within the lines. But you want to live your life out of the box.
Yes.
And you want to know, you want to have your children know about money, but we don't discuss money.
Yeah. True.
We want them to become artists and earn. For example, art doesn't pay. That's one of the point of views people have. But Why doesn't it pay? Because you never sold their artwork when they were a kid.
Yes.
You never told them you can sell your artwork and make money. So this is what I do. I mean, as a practice, if somebody is sending their kid to me for an art class, oftentimes I don't get people to join the art class because of this condition. I tell the parents, you're paying the fees, let's say whatever the fees is for 12 classes, your child is going to do body of work in these 12 classes. Are you ready to host this child's work as an exhibition, whether it's in your home or a park or anywhere, and call everybody and have this child communicate about the art? The child would have learned about the colors, combinations, whatever they did, and do it. So I think I've had only 2-3 parents who have done that. Rest of them would just do that but not display the work anyway. So the child was 5 years old. One of the children that I worked with was 5 years old when she did her first show. 28 artworks or something, and 24 was sold, with people buying her prints for the next 1 year. And then she had a second show when she was 7 or 8. People wanted artworks from the first show, printouts, plus artworks in the second show, and printouts of the. So people would come to buy the artwork so that they don't miss. I mean, people would come earlier or already book the artwork, like in an exhibition. When you go to an exhibition, you put a red dot if that artwork is sold. You go collect a sticker and say, I want to buy this, and you put it and go ahead. So that experience is created for the children. So are you as a person willing to go out, say, okay, I've given myself 1 month of time. Can I do a body of work? Can I now have a show? You don't have to go it like the typical gallery idea. You can just call friends or do social media, and you can do. Now the whole point is whether you wanted to be an artist and go in that line, or you want to just have the pleasure of, oh, I made art and I sold my art. There is no judgment about anything. It is just a journey and a choice that you're willing to do. So that is what, when I was talking about doing art, right? This is what I was talking about. So you begin for the pleasure of it. You take your time, you practice. These are all the mediums available. You understand curation. You can be a curator. You don't have to be an artist. You don't have to, you can study. You don't have to do it yourself, but you can understand art and you can talk about it. Anything. You know, people think art criticism is about criticizing the art. It's not. It's understanding and explaining. If suppose I draw this. People talk about abstract. Even a portrait is an abstract. It is just because people can understand a face. When they recognize a face, they think I understand portraits, but when I make something like this, I will not understand it. Every art is abstract, whether you draw a line. So I'll give an example of, I think, M.F. Hussein's work. There was a red dot, a black.
One line and a dot.
And a green dot, I think.
One line and a dot.
And that sold for quite a bit of amount, like 20 or 30 something CR or something. I'm talking 10 years, 12 years back. And people made a hue and cry about it. What is this? Even I can draw a dot and line and this and that. What he was trying to convey there is the red dot represented his blood. The black line represented the hardship of that blood. And finally, the green dot is that blood is now minting money. His art is minting money. For him, does he care about that? He cares more about his journey and his art and what he is creating and what he's contributing, and now it's making money. It's a different story. We talk about Picasso, we talk about all these artists, right? They didn't have money when they did. Did they stop art? No, they didn't. If you look at the original artworks of some of the people, you have one painting and there's another painting on top of it. Because they didn't have money to buy the art. And now the very same ones are recognized as originals and sold. Now the artists are no longer there. So this was an insight that came, like when I went to one of the museums and I was just looking at 1800, there was these miniature arts that you see in museums. Somebody did some art, there are sometimes we don't even know the name of the artist, but today we are looking at it 5,000, 2,000 years later, and it's still there. Can we play with art in that sense? And to play, if you require money, then do whatever it takes to create that money. If it is just for your pleasure. And I think 99% it should be for your pleasure. The 1% that we talk about is that when we are giving it out as a community, or we're giving it out and letting people look at it and receive it, that is just one part of us. It's not the entirety of us, but that one part becomes more significant. Any questions, or am I going in a different direction?
No, mine is answered.
Okay. So you can actually collaborate if you want to translate your work as an artist. You'll have to look at the body of work. There are series there. I'm going to share the PowerPoint presentation and the document that I made.
So I wanted to ask a little bit about framing. It's a little. So do you? I do frame my own paintings because currently I give it away for framing to somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's something I would like to kind of learn.
Okay. So I haven't done framing myself, but I know someone who's done framing themselves. I can either put you onto them.
Okay.
Or
yeah, that'll be great. Because for soft pastels, you can't, you technically need to put them in glass. So that's why I need to understand how the framing is done, whether I can do it at home myself.
Yeah, so now you need to look at how much time you're willing to spend on this whole process. If you find framing also as a creative process, then you can play with it. If you find framing as a very cumbersome process, then you need to go to a framer who will actually do it, that will enhance the painting.
See, so currently I go to a framer only, but I just wanted to try it for myself just for the fun of it.
Yeah, I think I can put you on to someone. There's a person called Shirish Deshpande. He's an artist.
Okay.
And he used to do his own framing. I don't know if he still does, but he does. He experiments a lot.
Okay.
And he would just make the painting, come here for his exhibitions, then frame them. And once the show is over, he'll unframe them, roll them up and take them.
Yeah, because sometimes it gets very difficult to really have those canvas around your house because there's not so much space. So I also have the unstretched canvas with me, which I usually paint on. Then if you know how to frame it, it's nice because you can quickly then.
Yeah, I can put you on.
Yeah.
There's a group of Belgaum. He's from Belgaum. So he's also leading a group of artists from Belgaum. So all these artists have a Zoom call, I think, on Sunday. And they display their work. 2 or 3 artists would display their work and they would talk about it. And then they are maintaining that weekly or monthly meetings. And sometimes they do art for change. They are right now trying to rescue or save a particular park from being deconstructed or taken somewhere.
Okay.
So yeah, I can put you onto that frames. And frames also you have to look at it. Sometimes when you do, let's say you have a A4 size and you paint the whole thing. But sometimes only this portion requires framing. You don't have that. So sometimes it's not about framing the whole thing. It's about framing what looks best.
Yeah.
So sometimes we think, okay, we have done the whole thing. Now I have to frame the whole thing. No, you can actually cut it. Which part? Now you have to look at the balance. Where is it balancing out? Instead of judging the painting as, oh, this part is good, but this is not good, then use that part, no, which is good. Why would you want to destroy the entire thing? If you find something very beautiful, but something put this picture off, then just frame it out. There are smaller pictures with 5-inch, 10-inch white portion and then framed with off-white or sometimes even white, or sometimes the wooden color frames that give it that space. So it's not just your artwork, you also have to look at the framing and how much space you're giving for that artwork to actually, show itself.
Yeah.
So we generally go, okay, let's go there and just get it framed, okay, whatever. And, we should look at all the painting should be in one way. So you have to always start segregating which ones go together, which ones can be clubbed, which ones can be framed in a similar way, which can go together. Like if there are 2-3 artworks, can they go together as an artwork? Can they be placed together to bring it out in the room? Can you now convert it into anything else? Like, would you like to convert that artwork pictures into prints? Do you have any questions on prints? So prints, you have to, if you're an artist, like an emerging artist who's selling the work, you have to maintain the number of prints you're selling. So print number 1 to 10, 1 by 1, 1 by 2, 1 by 3, 1 by 4, 1 by 10. You have to know which one you're selling to who. If you are requiring, see, the person who's buying the print knows that this print is available with 10 other people. The print cannot be sold at the same price as the original art. Original art has a different pricing. Even the paints that you use, there are some which you like some brands, but there are some which have good textures. Even in acrylic colors or oil colors, there are brands which if you use that longevity of the painting is there. When you use those paints, the artwork looks different. What you get in the stores, you have a certain generic value for it, but there are stores sometimes you have to source for these paints. Anything else? In Delhi and Gurgaon areas, you have a lot of galleries. I think, what is that lane, Gunjan, next to the Qutub Minar? Huh?
Qutub Minar.
That single.
I don't go to Delhi, so.
So there is an entire lane full of galleries there. Bombay,
yeah, I mean, I don't go that side much, so I have to check.
Any of you from Bombay?
I'm from Bombay.
Bombay.
Kalagoda Festival?
Yes,
Oh,
I
we love it.
love it. Yeah.
Near the Jahangir Art Gallery, you have the...
Yes. Yeah, totally. You know, Nivedita, yesterday my uncle's entity got connected to me. He was a national artist, like great artist. So it's not a coincidence I'm here. Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah.
So Kalagoda, every February they take enrollments, Jan, February. If you want to really go, they are very open to artists working with them.
Wow. When you said, can you repeat it again?
Around February.
7 Feb to 14 Feb.
Huh. They have it like, one of the Kalagoda festivals, Luke Kenny had come.
Oh, there are so many artists come. Sorry to butt in.
And he was doing book reading and he was playing instrument. I never knew this about him.
Okay.
So, yeah. We think that they are into theater and all, but they do other things also.
A lot of artists come. Sorry, but I mean, so many artists come.
Yeah.
And it is really fun. I mean,
You should come here to Kalagoda. It's so amazing. You will love it. It's a different world.
Yeah. Even
it's a different world, actually.
Yeah.
Have something called Chitra Sante by Chitrakala Parishad. They do it every year. They are close to 2,500 to 3,500 artists who come to display their artwork on the street. On either side of the street, they'll be given portions of place. You have to apply for it. And when you apply for it, you're actually given a space and a tag, and you're given a spot and you can put your work there, and people actually come and buy art. A lot of curators, a lot of art gallery owners, they come in search of people and artists. So if you really want to be an artist, you go to such a place and you display your art. Who knows, you might be an emerging artist. They might just identify you and take you.
Oh, awesome.
And most of the time there is street art, and in the street that you sell, see, suppose there are artists, they make a final artwork, but in order to build that artwork, they have a body of work to build that artwork. That artwork can be sold in a different space. The gallery will not sell that, but out of the gallery shop, there are in Hyderabad, there is a gallery which has both a gallery space and a work in progress gallery. So the artwork that is sold in work in progress art gallery is the work in progress for that artwork that has come. So people can just take that artwork, and that will actually sustain the artist for all the materials that they use and all that. So which is why that is encouraged. There is also this IRCTC. They have a train journey that they invite students and facilitators. You can actually apply every year, and you go on a journey for 20 days and you make a difference.
Wow.
In some place, and you come back. So, and that's like a immersion program.
Yeah. I recently attended one immersion program. It was so good. It was about I forgot the name of Uzbekistan. So
Right.
they were saying that people from there, they have no agenda. They will invite you like a family, and when we all come together, and become one family, it's so amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any
Thank you.
questions? Can I see you both, or will I see your pictures?
So I used to draw, not anymore.
Oh, why not?
Don't know. just got into the rut of life, I guess.
Try your non-dominant hand. If you're a right hand artist, try with your left hand. Start with oil pastels. No agenda, just ask the left hand to choose what color it wants to pick and let it draw. Usually mandalas and Zentangles are the things that you can go to, and mandalas are not pre-printed ones. You take a picture.
Today I was seeing some YouTube video on mandala. I thought, okay, I'll start with that. So,
I have created
the ideal mandala would be take a 11-inch diameter circle and start drawing within that. Not with a pre-printed. Pre-printed is okay, but you will receive from the mandala if you're actually able to make it a blank circle, which is 11.5 inches, and draw within that, and with your non-dominant hand, not your dominant.
I was making it on mobile. It was kind of downloads.
Yeah.
Channel few energies to that.
Yeah. So
And
when you do the downloads, you don't use your pincer grip.
Okay.
Pincer grip is very important for your mental well-being.
Okay.
Not one finger. The pincer grip, when you press this, has a certain value to you. The more you use your mobile, you use your swipe. You don't use your pincer grip.
yeah, true.
Yeah.
I am a Montessori teacher, and we lay so much importance on the grip.
Right. And the grip is very important.
Another thing I was thinking about this, because art is really amazing to transform emotions.
Yes.
Like if you have anger, fear, it will create some higher emotion,
Right.
Like once I was really sad, it was a time, and I asked, okay, what can I create? So I created this beautiful heart, and it was a message about self. And whenever I see it, I feel like, OMG, wow. So
art can also lead to art therapy, and I didn't talk about intuitive art. Intuitive art is a different dimension. It doesn't have to do, you can be an artist in that region also. Intuitive art is you don't plan, it's not, abstract is different, intuitive art is different.
Yeah, I'm more like that. Like I don't plan, it just flows most of my days.
So
what are the scope in that area, intuitive art area?
Plenty, because there's a lot of art therapy work that goes into it. You have to study a lot of expressive arts. Like there is this author Kathy Malchiodi.
Kathy?
Kathy Malchiodi. She's like the queen of mother of art therapy.
I love art. I love dancing and expressing. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
There is actually an art therapy course in Delhi. Fortis Healthcare actually does an art therapy course every year. They announce it sometime in August, I think, but they take enrollments in April or something like
What
that.
is?
Fortis Healthcare. And this is in tie-up with UNICEF.
Wow.
And you actually can go and certify yourself as a therapist, as an art therapist.
Okay.
And expressive arts. They don't do just art, they also do theater and something else.
Okay.
Yeah. That's it? Over? Any more questions?
Are you going to upload this? Like, can
Yeah.
we get the replay? Thank you, Nivedita.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Amazing information.
Thank you.
Thank
I will
you.
be giving the link to the PowerPoint or also, which I made. For
Okay.
And did you also use your art during your recovery?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't painted that much because the discomfort is there. Physical discomfort is there. But yeah, I think I always find just using my left hand or the scribbling easy.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just do message me on my phone number and I can send you the Word document.
Sure.
Art in Focus, my notes, and also the PowerPoint presentation. So that you have the information with you.
So great.
Okay.
Nivedita.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.